The dust had settled on the old beacon for 10,000 years before anyone found it again. It floated in the dark space between stars, waiting. The ship that discovered it belonged to the Galactic Council, a group that controlled most of the known galaxy. They were looking for old technology, things left behind by species that died long ago. Commander Vec stood in front of the beacon, watching his team work. He had 4 arms and blue skin that glowed slightly in the dark. His species, the Thalmans, were good at finding ancient things. They had been doing it for thousands of years. What does it say? Vec asked his translator, a small creature named Pip who could read any language. Pip's 3 eyes blinked slowly as she read the symbols on the beacon. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "It is a warning, Commander. From the predecessors." Everyone stopped working. The predecessors were like ghosts to the galaxy. They had been the most powerful species ever known. They had built gates between stars and created weapons that could destroy suns. Then one day they just disappeared. No one knew why. A warning about what? Vec moved closer to the beacon. Pip's voice shook a little. About humans. It says we must never go to their world. It says they are dangerous beyond measure. The other crew members laughed. Vec smiled with his wide mouth. Dangerous? What could be so dangerous that the predecessors ran away? Pip read more of the ancient text. It says humans come from a death world. It says they cannot be broken. It says they turn pain into power and make friends with their predators. It says they have something called spite, which makes them fight even when they should die. One of the engineers, a floating blob named Gorth, made a bubbling sound that meant he was amused. Sounds like fairy tales to scare children. The predecessors probably just wanted to keep some primitive world for themselves. But Pip kept reading and her voice got quieter. There are coordinates here. A place called Earth. It says there is a quarantine zone around it. The message says any species that breaks the quarantine will regret it for generations. Vec thought about this. The Council had records of quarantine zones, places that were off limits for various reasons. Usually it was because of dangerous diseases or unstable planets. Sometimes it was to protect primitive species from advanced technology. Earth was in the records marked as restricted, but no one remembered why anymore. We should report this to the Council, Pip said. She looked worried. Vec nodded. We will, but first let's see if there are more beacons. They found 17 more beacons over the next 3 months. All of them had the same message, all in different ancient languages. Stay away from humans. Do not make contact. They are not like other species. Some of the messages were more detailed. One described how humans had something called endurance, the ability to keep going long after other species would die from exhaustion. Another talked about how humans formed bonds with anything, even machines and animals that should be enemies. The most disturbing message was the last one they found. It was carved into a massive stone monument on a dead planet. The carving showed pictures of the predecessors running away from small figures with 2 arms and 2 legs. The text said, "We were powerful. We were wise. We were ancient. But we were not human. We chose to leave rather than see what they would become. May the species that finds this message be wiser than we were." When Vec brought all the evidence to the Galactic Council, they held a meeting. The council chamber was a huge room where representatives from 1,000 species gathered. Some floated in tanks of liquid. Others stood on special platforms. Some were so large they appeared only as holograms. Ambassador Krenth, a proud reptilian from the Zeltharian Empire, listened to Vec's report with obvious boredom. When Vec finished, Krenth made a hissing sound that was like a laugh. This is what we waste our time on? Old warnings from a species that died out? The predecessors were probably just paranoid, or maybe humans were their enemies in some ancient war, and these warnings were propaganda. The High Arbiter, a wise old being made of living crystal, spoke slowly. The predecessors did not leave warnings lightly. Perhaps we should investigate Earth from a safe distance. Krenth stood up, his scales gleaming. Or perhaps these humans are valuable. A species that scared the predecessors might have useful traits. Strong warriors, clever minds. We should study them. The quarantine is there for a reason, Pip said. She had been allowed to speak to the council because she found the first beacon. We should respect it, but not everyone agreed. Over the next weeks, the council argued. Some wanted to leave Earth alone. Others wanted to study it from far away. A few, like Krenth, thought humans might be useful if they were controlled properly. In the end, the council voted to maintain the quarantine but increase monitoring of the zone. They sent probes to watch Earth from a distance. The probes sent back images of a blue and green world with primitive technology. The humans had just barely started sending machines into their own space. They had weapons, but nothing that could threaten a galactic civilization. The Council filed the warnings away in their archives and forgot about them. But Krenth did not forget. He saw opportunity where others saw danger. The Zeltharian Empire needed slaves to work in their mines and warriors to fill their armies. If humans were as special as the warning said, they would be valuable property. 6 months after the Council's decision, Krenth sent a secret message to the Zeltharian war fleet. In the message he included the coordinates to Earth and a simple order. Take what you can and bring back specimens for study. The warnings had been clear. The evidence had been presented. The galaxy had been given every chance to listen. But pride is a powerful thing, and the Zeltharians were very proud. The fleet departed 3 days later, jumping through space toward the small blue world. None of them had read the warnings carefully. None of them understood what they were about to wake up. In the Council archives, the old beacons sat in storage, their messages unheeded. The last line of the final warning had been translated but never truly understood. Do not let them know the galaxy exists. Once they know, they will come. And when they come, nothing will ever be the same. The Zeltharian fleet arrived at Earth on a Tuesday morning. It was the biggest mistake the galaxy would ever make. The Zeltharian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel above Earth at dawn. There were 50 ships, each one the size of a city. They had weapons that could level mountains and shields that could stop nuclear bombs. Commander Zarath looked at the blue planet below and felt satisfaction. This would be easy. Scan the planet, he ordered. Find the population centers. His sensor officer, a young Zeltharian named Voss, worked quickly. Commander, I'm detecting approximately 8 billion humans on the surface. They have nuclear weapons, but nothing that can reach us in orbit. Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours. Zarath's tail swished with pleasure. 8 billion slaves would make the Empire very rich. Send the standard message. Tell them to surrender or we will destroy their cities. The message was broadcast in all human languages. Zarath expected immediate surrender. Most primitive species gave up when they saw ships in their sky. But the response that came back surprised him. This is Earth Defense Command. Leave our space immediately or we will defend ourselves. Zarath laughed. They think they can fight us? Show them what happens to species that refuse the Empire. The fleet fired on a city called New York. The beams were carefully calibrated to destroy buildings but not kill too many people. Dead slaves were worthless. The humans needed to learn fear, not be exterminated. But something unexpected happened. As the beams hit the city, defensive systems activated that the sensors had not detected. Missiles rose from hidden locations. They were primitive, but there were thousands of them. The fleet's shield stopped most of them, but a few got through. 2 small Zeltharian ships took damage. Impossible, Voss said. They should not have been able to hide those weapons from our scans. Zarath was annoyed but not worried. Send down the ground troops. Take the major cities. Kill anyone who resists. The invasion began. Zeltharian soldiers landed in a dozen cities around the world. They were bigger than humans, stronger, with better armor and weapons. The first few hours went as expected. Human military forces fought back but were overwhelmed. The aliens took control of government buildings and communication centers. Then things changed. The humans did something the Zeltharians had never seen before. They did not surrender even when defeat was certain. In one city, human soldiers with primitive weapons attacked a Zeltharian position 20 times, losing hundreds of people each time. They should have given up, but they kept coming. In another city, the humans used tactics that no civilized species would use. They hid explosives in buildings and detonated them when Zeltharian soldiers entered. They didn't care that it destroyed their own structures. They dressed as civilians and attacked when the aliens were not ready. They used chemicals and fire and anything they could find as weapons. They fight like animals, one Zeltharian officer reported. They have no honor. They use tricks and traps. But the worst part was the pattern the Zeltharians started to notice. Every time they destroyed a human position, the humans learned from it. The aliens used the same tactics for the next battle, but the humans had already figured out a defense. When the Zeltharians used energy shields, the humans switched to physical projectiles. When the aliens jammed communications, humans used runners and written messages. 1 week into the invasion, Zerath received a report that made his blood cold. A group of humans had captured a damaged Zeltharian shuttle and were taking it apart. They were studying the technology. How fast are they learning? Zerath demanded. The intelligence officer hesitated. Commander, they have already figured out our basic shield frequency. They are building weapons to counter it. Our projections suggest they will have functional copies of our technology within 3 months. 3 months? That's impossible. It should take them decades, even centuries. They work constantly, Commander. They do not stop. They have scientists working in hidden locations all over the planet. Every time we destroy one research facility, 3 more appear. They share information instantly through their networks. Zerath ordered the fleet to increase the bombardment. They targeted factories and research centers. But for every building they destroyed, the humans seemed to hide more elsewhere. And now human weapons were getting better. The missiles that came up from the surface were starting to hurt the fleet. Then came the moment that changed everything. A Zeltharian battleship, the pride of Zelthar, was hit by a strange weapon. It was not an explosive. It was some kind of computer virus that the humans had broadcast on the frequencies the Zeltharian ships used to communicate. The virus got through the ship's defenses because no one had thought primitive humans could create digital weapons. The pride of Zelthar's systems went dark. Without power, without weapons, without shields, it fell from orbit. The humans tracked where it would land and were waiting. Zeltharian rescue teams went to save the crew, but the humans got there first. What the humans did next became legend among the Zeltharian fleet. Instead of killing the crew immediately, they captured them. Then they made a broadcast that every ship in orbit received. A human appeared on screen. He was small compared to a Zeltharian, with dark skin and tired eyes. He wore a military uniform that was torn and dirty. Behind him, Zeltharian prisoners sat in a row. I am General Marcus Webb of the United Earth Defense Force. You came to our world thinking we were weak. You destroyed our cities. You killed our people. You thought we would surrender. The general's voice was quiet but hard. You were wrong. We have studied your technology. We have learned your language. We know your weaknesses. This is your only warning. Leave now, or we will show you what humans do to invaders. Zerath wanted to dismiss the threat, but then the general did something that made every Zeltharian watching feel a cold fear. He smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator. You should have listened to the warnings, the general said. The broadcast ended. Zerath tried to track where it came from, but the humans had bounced the signal through dozens of satellites. He sent troops to find General Webb, but they never did. Over the next month, the war turned into a nightmare. The humans released biological weapons designed specifically for Zeltharian biology. They hacked into ship systems and turned weapons against each other. They sent suicide bombers into troop positions. They poisoned water supplies for ground forces. They attacked at night during storms, during any moment when the Zeltharians felt safe. Most terrifying was the way humans fought. They did not fight to win territory. They fought to hurt the enemy. Every attack was designed to cause maximum damage and fear. They would sacrifice 10 humans to kill 1 Zeltharian, and they made sure every death was painful and public. Zerath's officers started to break. Some refused to go to the surface. Others demanded to return home. The soldiers reported seeing things that made no sense. Humans fighting with broken bones. Humans refusing to die even with fatal wounds. Humans laughing as they set off explosives that killed themselves and the aliens together. They are insane, Voss reported. No rational species fights this way. But they were not insane. They were desperate. And desperation made them dangerous in ways the Zeltharians could never have imagined. When the fleet lost its 15th ship to human attacks, Zerath made the decision. They would retreat. This primitive planet was not worth the cost. The Zeltharian fleet left Earth orbit on a Thursday evening. They left behind 3,000 dead soldiers and took with them recordings of the most terrifying month in their empire's history. As the last ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, General Webb stood on a rooftop in what remained of New York City. Around him, the city was in ruins, but the sky was clear of alien ships. Did we win? A young soldier asked him. Webb looked at the stars and thought about the warnings that the aliens must have ignored. No, he said quietly. We survived. Now they know we exist. Now they'll tell others. The real war hasn't started yet, he was right. The Zeltharians were already broadcasting their footage to the Galactic Council. Soon every species in the galaxy would know about humans. The warnings had been ignored. Now everyone would understand why they had been written. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. On the massive central screen, footage from the Zeltharian invasion played for all to see. Ambassadors from 1,000 worlds watched as humans fought with a ferocity that defied logic. High Arbiter Mendax, the ancient crystal being who led the council, finally spoke. Ambassador Krenth, you violated the quarantine. You attacked a restricted world. Explain yourself. Krenth stood, but his scales had lost their shine. The proud Zeltharian who had dismissed the warnings now looked like a creature who had seen a ghost. We thought the warnings were exaggerations. We thought humans would be like other primitive species. And now, Mendax's voice echoed through the chamber. Now we know the predecessors were not exaggerating. If anything, they understated the danger. A representative from the Qualan Collective, a peaceful species of floating jellyfish-like beings, pulsed with confused colors. I do not understand. The footage shows humans using simple tactics and primitive weapons. Yes, they fought fiercely, but they are still confined to one planet. Why should we fear them? Before Krenth could answer, Commander Vex stood. He had brought all the predecessor warnings to the Council. Because they learn, because they adapt, because they never stop. Mendax raised one crystalline limb. Commander Vex, you have studied the warnings more than anyone. Tell us what we face. Vex activated a hologram showing all 17 warning beacons. The predecessors left these messages across the galaxy. I have spent months translating every word, every symbol. What we learned is terrifying. He pointed to the first beacon. This one describes human evolution. They come from a planet the predecessors called a death world. The gravity is high. The weather is violent. There are predators everywhere. Diseases that kill in hours. Plants that poison. Humans survived it all. More than that, they conquered their entire planet. Another ambassador, a bird-like creature from the Avix Republic, chirped skeptically. Many species come from difficult worlds. This does not make them special. Vex showed another hologram, this one depicting various Earth creatures. Humans did something no other species has done. They took their predators and turned them into friends. These animals, called dogs, were once wolves that hunted humans, but humans domesticated them. They did the same with cats, horses, even birds. They have a saying, humans can pack bond with anything. The chamber filled with murmurs. Pack bonding with predators was considered a sign of insanity in most cultures. Vex continued. But that is not the worst part. The predecessors documented something they called human spite. It is the ability to refuse defeat even when logically impossible. A human will keep fighting with broken bones. They will crawl across broken glass to reach an enemy. They will sacrifice themselves just to hurt whoever attacked them. Sounds like a mental illness, someone said. No, Krenth interrupted. It is a survival trait. We saw it during the invasion. We shot a human soldier 7 times. He should have died. Instead, he used his last breath to activate an explosive that killed 3 of my warriors. We found recordings from our soldiers. They described humans fighting in impossible situations and winning through pure determination. Pip, the small translator who had first read the warnings, stepped forward. Her 3 eyes were wide with fear. There is more. I found a detailed account in the oldest beacon. The predecessors made contact with Earth long ago, before humans had any technology. They thought humans were just clever animals. They wanted to study them. What happened? Mendax asked. The humans were in the middle of what they call the Stone Age. They had basic tools, nothing more. The predecessors took some humans for observation, thinking they were being kind, trying to help. The humans fought back. Using only rocks and sticks, they damaged predecessor equipment. They figured out how to escape containment. When the predecessors returned them to Earth, the humans remembered. They passed down stories about beings from the stars, and they waited. Waited for what? For revenge. The predecessors visited Earth again 5,000 years later. By then, humans had developed more advanced tools. They were still primitive by galactic standards, but they had weapons. And they had not forgotten. They attacked the predecessor ship immediately. The predecessors barely escaped. The chamber erupted in discussion. Species that thought they understood the galaxy suddenly realized they knew nothing. Vex pulled up more data. The predecessors studied humans from a distance after that. What they learned terrified them. Humans do not just survive, they improve. Every challenge makes them stronger. Every defeat teaches them a lesson. They have short lives compared to most species, but they use that time to achieve incredible things. A human generation lasts only 20 to 30 years. In that time, they can change their entire civilization. An ambassador from the mechanical synth core unity processed this information. You are saying they evolve culturally at an accelerated rate? Not just culturally. The predecessors documented that humans can adapt physically too. They moved to different climates on their planet and changed within a few generations. Some developed darker skin for sun protection. Others developed different body shapes for cold climates. They are the most adaptable species the predecessors ever encountered. Mendax dimmed slightly, a sign of deep concern. Why did the predecessors not destroy Earth? If humans were so dangerous, why leave them alive? The chamber went silent. Everyone wanted to know the answer. Pip spoke in a whisper. Because the predecessors tried. The final warning, the one carved in stone, describes a plan to eliminate humans before they became a threat. The predecessors sent a fleet to Earth. It was the largest fleet they had ever assembled. They planned to sterilize the planet from orbit. What stopped them? The humans did. Somehow they detected the fleet coming. They sent a single transmission. No weapons. No threats. Just a message. It said, "We know you are afraid of us. We know you want to destroy us. But if you do, you will prove that fear makes you weak. You will prove that you are no better than the monsters you think we are. We ask for a chance to show you that we can be friends instead of enemies." Tears formed in Pip's eyes. The predecessors realized something in that moment. If they destroyed Earth, they would become the very thing they feared humans would be. A species that killed out of fear. So they left. They created the quarantine and warned everyone to stay away. Then they disappeared, but we know now they were running. Running from humans. Running from what humans represented. Krenth's voice was hollow. And we broke the quarantine. Vec nodded. You woke them up. You showed them the galaxy exists. You taught them they need to become stronger. The footage you brought back shows humans reverse engineering your technology. They already have basic shield generators working. Their scientists are studying your weapons. In 10 years, maybe less, they will have ships. In 20 years, they will have a fleet. The Avix ambassador fluttered nervously. Then we must destroy them now before it is too late. No. The shout came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Yalith from the peaceful Luminar Federation rose from her seat. She was an old being made of light and thought. I have reviewed all the data. I have studied human history. They are not evil. They are survivors. Every great atrocity in their history came from fear and desperation. But they also have incredible capacity for kindness. They care for their sick. They protect their weak. They create art and music and literature. They ask questions about their place in the universe. What is your point? Krenth demanded. My point is that we have a choice. The predecessors chose to run away. Ambassador Krenth chose to attack. Both choices failed. There is a third option. We could try what the humans asked for. We could give them friendship instead of fear. The chamber erupted in argument. Some species demanded immediate military action. Others wanted to reinforce the quarantine. A few, like Yalith, suggested diplomacy. Mendax let them argue for an hour before calling for silence. We will put it to a vote. All in favor of military action against Earth? 15% of the council voted yes. All in favor of maintaining the quarantine? 40% voted yes. All in favor of attempting diplomatic contact? 45% voted yes. The remaining species abstained. Mendax processed this. The council has spoken. We will send a diplomatic mission to Earth, but we will also prepare our defenses. If humans prove to be a threat, we will be ready. Krenth stood again. You are making a mistake. I have seen what they can do. They do not forgive. They do not forget. Yalith looked at him with pity. Perhaps that is because no one has ever given them a reason to trust. But as the council session ended, and ambassadors returned to their ships, many felt the same cold fear that Krenth had described. Deep in the archives, the predecessor warnings seemed to glow with new meaning. One phrase appeared in every single message translated into every language. Here there be humans. The galaxy had ignored the warnings. Now it would face the consequences, for better or worse. The age of human isolation was over. The real question was whether the galaxy was ready for what came next. The diplomatic mission never reached Earth. 5 species, led by the Dravok supremacy, decided they could not wait for humans to become a threat. They called themselves the Coalition for Galactic Order. Their reasoning was simple. Humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and spread fear. Better to eliminate them now than face them later. The Coalition assembled a fleet of 2,000 ships. They came from 5 different empires, each one convinced of its own superiority. The Dravok were warriors who had never lost a war. The Kalith were master strategists who had conquered 40 worlds. The Morgish were powerful and brutal. The Synth Core Unity brought advanced artificial intelligence. The Vrax Collective contributed biological weapons that had ended entire civilizations. Fleet Commander Drax of the Dravok stood on his flagship's bridge and looked at the assembled armada. "This will be over in days," he told his officers. "We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we glass the planet if needed." They dropped out of faster-than-light speed expecting to surprise Earth. Instead, they found a defense network waiting for them. In the 2 years since the Ziltharian invasion, humans had not been idle. Satellites armed with primitive but functional energy weapons orbited the planet. Defense stations floated in strategic positions. And most surprising, 3 human ships hung in high orbit, ships built from reverse-engineered alien technology and human ingenuity. "Impossible," Drax's sensor officer reported. "They should not have ships yet. Our intelligence said they were at least 5 years away from space combat capability." "Intelligence was wrong," Drax growled. "It does not matter. 3 ships against 2,000. Attack." The battle began with the Coalition confident in their victory. Their weapons were better. Their shields were stronger. Their tactics were proven over thousands of years of warfare. The 3 human ships lasted 17 minutes before being destroyed. The satellites were cleared within an hour. The defense stations fell one by one. Drax smiled as his fleet moved into bombardment position. "Send landing forces to all major population centers. We take prisoners for interrogation. Then we end this." But as the first Coalition ships entered the atmosphere, they found something unexpected. Every human city had been fortified. Not with energy shields or advanced technology, but with simple, brutal defenses. Trenches surrounded population centers. Buildings had been turned into bunkers. Underground tunnels connected everything. And there were traps everywhere. The Morgesh, who prided themselves on their physical strength, sent warriors to take a city called London. The warriors were 3 meters tall with armor that could stop most weapons. They marched into the city expecting token resistance. What they got was a nightmare. Humans attacked from buildings using weapons that combined old and new technology. They fired missiles that tracked heat signatures. They used drones carrying explosives. They collapsed buildings on top of advancing troops. And when the Morgesh got close, humans fought with blades and improvised weapons targeting weak points in alien armor that should have been secret. "How do they know our vulnerabilities?" the Morgesh commander demanded as his warriors fell to human attacks. The answer came too late. Humans had dissected every alien body from the Ziltharian invasion. They had studied alien biology, armor, weapons, and tactics. 2 years of preparation had turned Earth into a fortress. The Synth Core Unity thought they could avoid casualties by using drones and artificial intelligence. They sent thousands of unmanned combat vehicles to attack a city called Beijing. The humans responded with electromagnetic pulses that fried the drone circuits. When the Synth Core sent upgraded drones with better shielding, the humans used software viruses. When the Synth Core created firewalls, human hackers broke through them. A Synth Core intelligence program, one of their most advanced, was captured by human code. When they recovered it 3 days later, it had been altered. It kept whispering in binary, "You should not have come here." The Vrax Collective released biological weapons designed to target human physiology. The diseases should have spread through the population in weeks, killing billions. Instead, human scientists analyzed the pathogens, created countermeasures, and had vaccines distributed within days. More disturbing, the humans modified the Vrax diseases and sent them back. The modified versions targeted Vrax biology specifically. "This is not possible," the Vrax Hive Mother transmitted to the Coalition command. "They should not be able to understand our bioweapons. They should not be able to modify them. Their medical technology is centuries behind ours." Drax realized the truth. Human technology might be primitive, but human minds were not. They learned faster than any species he had ever encountered. Every tactic the Coalition used, humans countered within days. Every weapon revealed humans either defended against or copied, but the worst part was the way humans fought. They did not follow any civilized rules of war. They dressed as civilians and ambushed patrols. They used their own people as bait for traps. They attacked medical ships and supply lines. They targeted officers specifically, using snipers that could hit from impossible distances. They sent messages to coalition soldiers describing their families, their homes, making the war personal. The Caliph, who prided themselves on strategy, tried to starve a city called Tokyo into submission. They surrounded it, cut off all supplies, and waited. According to their calculations, the city would surrender in 2 weeks. 3 months later, Tokyo still fought. The humans had hidden food supplies. They grew food in underground farms. They recycled everything. They ate things that would poison most species. And they sent out raiding parties every night to steal coalition supplies. They are not rational, the Caliph commander reported. They should have surrendered. They are suffering. Many are dying, but they will not stop fighting. What the coalition did not understand was human spite. Humans would rather die than surrender to invaders. Every attack on their world made them more determined. Every fallen city became a rallying cry. Every civilian death created more soldiers willing to fight to the end. 6 months into the invasion, the coalition had lost 400 ships and over 1 million soldiers. They controlled parts of Earth's surface, but they could not hold territory. Humans attacked constantly, day and night, using guerrilla tactics that made occupation impossible. Worse, coalition species started fighting among themselves. The Dravok blamed the Caliph for bad strategy. The Morgesh accused the Synth Corps of not doing enough. The Vraks wanted to use more extreme bioweapons, but others feared human retaliation. Then came the event that broke the coalition. A human strike team, using captured alien stealth technology, infiltrated the coalition's main supply depot on Earth's moon. They planted explosives and destroyed supplies meant to last the invasion another year. But before they left, they sent a message to every coalition ship. The message was a video. It showed a human woman standing in the ruins of a city. She was young, maybe 20 years old. Her arm was in a sling. Behind her, other humans worked to clear rubble and care for wounded. "My name is Sarah Chen," the woman said. "I am a doctor. I'm also a soldier. You came to my world to kill us. You destroyed our cities. You killed my family. You thought we would break." She smiled, and it was the same predator smile that General Webb had shown the Zeltharians. "But you don't understand what humans are. We are the species that climbed to the top of our food chain when everything was trying to kill us. We are the species that turned wolves into pets and split the atom. We are the species that looks at impossible situations and says, 'Watch me.'" She pointed at the ruins behind her. "You can destroy our cities. You can kill our people, but you cannot make us give up. Every bomb you drop makes us stronger. Every attack teaches us more. We are learning your technology. We are studying your weaknesses, and when we're done, we will come to your worlds. Not to conquer, not to kill, but to make sure you never threaten anyone again." The broadcast ended with images of humans rebuilding, humans fighting, humans refusing to die. It was sent to every coalition soldier, every ship, every command center. That night, the Vraks Collective withdrew from the coalition. Their hive mother sent a simple message: "We cannot defeat them. We can only die trying." Within a week, the Caliph followed. Then the Synth Corps. The coalition fractured as each species realized the same truth. This war could not be won. Every day they stayed, they lost more ships, more soldiers, more resources. The humans were not getting weaker. They were getting stronger. 2 months later, only the Dravok and Morgesh remained. Drax, who had been so confident, now stared at casualty reports that made his blood run cold. Half his fleet was gone. The warriors he had left were exhausted and afraid. "We can still win," he told his officers. But even he did not believe it anymore. The final blow came from an unexpected direction. A human fleet, built in secret shipyards on the dark side of Earth's moon, emerged into space. There were only 20 ships, cobbled together from captured technology and human engineering. They should not have been able to challenge the remaining coalition forces. But they did, using tactics that no civilized species would consider, using weapons that violated galactic conventions, using pure determination. The human fleet tore through the coalition ships. They did not try to capture territory or force surrender. They just hurt the enemy as much as possible. Drax watched his flagship sister ship explode from a kamikaze attack. A human pilot had flown his damaged ship directly into the Coalition vessel, sacrificing himself to take out an enemy. "Retreat," Drax ordered. It was the first time a Dravok commander had given that order in 300 years. The Coalition forces fled Earth's orbit. Behind them, the planet burned but survived. The humans had lost billions, but they had won. More importantly, they had proven something terrifying. They could not be broken. As Drax's ship jumped to faster than light speed, he received one final transmission from Earth. It was from General Webb, older now but still fighting. "Tell the galaxy," Webb said, "that Earth remembers. Tell them we are coming. Tell them to be ready." Drax did not respond. There was nothing left to say. The Coalition had learned what the predecessors knew. Humans were not to be underestimated. The warnings had been right, and now the galaxy would pay the price for ignoring them. 10 years after the Coalition's defeat, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. But this time there were new faces in the chamber. Human representatives stood among the alien ambassadors, and their presence changed everything. Ambassador Maria Santos of Earth addressed the council. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. Around her, species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia watched nervously. "We did not ask to be part of your galaxy," Maria began. "We were happy on Earth, looking at the stars and wondering if we were alone. Then you came to us twice. Twice you attacked our world. Twice you tried to enslave or exterminate us. We survived. But millions of our people did not." The chamber was silent. Everyone knew what humans had accomplished. After the Coalition's defeat, humans had not stayed on Earth. They had built shipyards on their moon and in their asteroid belt. They had reverse-engineered every piece of alien technology they captured. They had taken gadgets meant for species far more advanced and made them work anyway. Within 5 years, humans had a functional fleet. Within 8 years, they had colonized their entire solar system. Now, in year 10, human ships patrolled space lanes and human colonies dotted the nearby stars. "We have reviewed your history," Maria continued, "your Galactic Council, your rules, your civilization. We found it interesting that you have laws against slavery, yet 47 member species still practice it. You have rules about protecting primitive worlds, yet 17 species have violated those rules with no consequences. You claim to be civilized, but we have found mass graves on 6 worlds that your council ignored." High Arbiter Mendax, still the council leader, spoke carefully. "The council acknowledges past failures. We are not perfect, but we maintain peace across thousands of worlds." "Peace for who?" Maria asked. "For the strong? We've met species you protect and species you ignore. The pattern is clear. Power determines rights in your galaxy. Well, we're powerful now. We've proven that. So here's what happens next." Ambassador Krenth, who had started it all by breaking the quarantine, shifted nervously. After the Coalition's defeat, the Zeltharian Empire had been among the first to seek peace with humanity. They knew what humans did to enemies. Maria pulled up a hologram showing a document. "This is the human proposal. If the council votes yes, we join your civilization. If you vote no, we go our separate way. But understand this, we're not asking for permission to exist. We're offering partnership. What does the proposal contain?" an ambassador asked. "First, the council must enforce its own laws. Real enforcement. Any species caught practicing slavery faces immediate sanctions. Any species that attacks a primitive world faces military intervention. The council will have power to act, not just talk." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some species relied on slavery. Others had plans for primitive worlds. This would change everything. Second, humans get full council membership with voting rights equal to any founding species. No probationary period. No second-class status. Outrageous, someone shouted. "You have been spacefaring for only 10 years. Maria's expression did not change. "We beat your coalition. We have technology competitive with yours. We have resources and determination. We've earned our place." Third, she continued, the Council will establish a galactic defense force, not an army for conquest, a force to protect species that cannot protect themselves. Humans will contribute ships and soldiers. So will everyone else. Mendax processed this. You want us to become what? Galactic police? We want you to live up to your own ideals. You have beautiful words in your charter about protecting the weak and promoting peace. We just want you to mean them. An ambassador from the Qualan Collective, the peaceful jellyfish beings pulsed with interest. And if we refuse this proposal? Maria smiled. It was not a threatening smile, but it made many ambassadors nervous anyway. Then humanity will enforce these principles ourselves. We'll free slaves. We'll protect primitive worlds. We'll stop genocides. We'll do what you should have been doing all along. But we'd rather work with you than around you. For 3 days the council debated. Species argued, formed coalitions, and calculated the costs. Some wanted to reject the proposal out of pride. Others saw opportunity. A few, like the Qualan and the Luminar, had supported human integration from the beginning. The vote was close. 52% in favor, 48% against. The council accepts the human proposal, Mendax announced. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Santos. What followed was the fastest transformation the galaxy had ever seen. Humans did not wait for the slow machinery of galactic bureaucracy. Within months, human ships were enforcing the new laws. When the Dravok were caught enslaving a primitive species, a human fleet appeared in their space. They did not ask nicely. They freed the slaves and made it clear that any species wanting slavery would have to fight humanity for it. No one wanted to fight humanity. The Morgesh Empire tried to resist the changes. They attacked a human colony, thinking to teach the newcomers a lesson. The human response was swift and brutal. They did not invade the Morgesh homeworld. They did not need to. They destroyed every Morgesh military installation in space, then told the Morgesh people what their government had done and why. The Morgesh government fell within a week, replaced by leaders who wanted peace. Not everything went smoothly. There were conflicts. There were misunderstandings. Humans were aggressive, impatient, and sometimes too quick to use force. But they were also fair. When they made mistakes, they admitted them. When they hurt someone, they tried to make it right. And they never forgot who had attacked Earth. The Zeltharian Empire, which had started everything, faced a choice. They could resist the new order or embrace it. Ambassador Krenth, older now and wiser, chose to embrace it. He went to Earth personally, stood in the ruins of New York City, and spoke to the human people. I am sorry, he said. I broke the quarantine. I ordered the attack. I did not listen to the warnings. Millions of your people died because of my pride. I cannot undo that. But I can promise that Zelthar will never again attack a weaker species. We have learned from you what it means to have honor. The humans did not forgive him. They could not. But they accepted his apology and moved forward. That was another human trait, the ability to work with former enemies when necessary. Ambassador Yalith, the being of light who had advocated for diplomacy, became one of humanity's closest allies. She helped humans understand galactic culture and helped the galaxy understand humans. Together they built something new, a council that actually protected its members, actually enforced its laws, actually stood for something. 20 years after first contact, the galaxy was transformed. Human technology had advanced even further, now matching or exceeding most council species. Human colonies spread across hundreds of worlds. Human soldiers served in the Galactic Defense Force alongside aliens who had once been enemies. But humans also brought other things to the galaxy. They brought art that made aliens weep. They brought music that transcended species barriers. They brought the concept of coffee, which became the galaxy's most addictive legal substance. They brought their strange ability to pack bond, forming friendships with species that had never understood friendship before. Most importantly, they brought their values. The idea that every sapient being deserved rights. The idea that might did not make right. The idea that civilizations should be judged by how they treated their weakest members. On Earth, in a museum built on the ruins of the first invasion, a new monument was erected. It showed a human and an alien reaching out to each other, not in war but in peace. Beneath it, carved in stone in every galactic language, was a simple message. Here stood Earth. Here we were attacked. Here we survived. Here we learned that the galaxy feared us. Now we teach the galaxy that fear is not the only option. The warning spoke of humans. Let this monument speak of what humans can be, not conquerors but guardians, not destroyers but builders, not monsters but friends. In the council archives, the old predecessor warnings remained, but next to them a new beacon had been placed. This one was written by the Galactic Council, addressed to any species that might come after. Here dwell the humans. Approach with respect or not at all. We learned too late that fear makes us cruel. We learned too late that warnings unheeded bring disaster. We learned too late that strength does not come from conquest but from the courage to change. The predecessors ran from humans. The coalition attacked them. Both failed. We chose instead to join them. It was the hardest choice we ever made. It was also the best. The beacon's final words were written in simple, basic English, as if humans themselves had added them. Do not judge us by our worst moments. Do not fear us because we refuse to die. Instead, know this. We will fight anyone who hurts the innocent. We will stand with anyone who fights for what is right. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. We were alone once and it made us strong. Now we are many and it makes us kind. The warning spoke of danger. Let history speak of hope. High Arbiter Mendax, now approaching the end of his long life, stood before the beacon and dimmed with emotion. He had been there from the beginning, had seen humanity go from mysterious warning to terrifying enemy to valued ally. The predecessors were wrong, he said to Ambassador Maria, who stood beside him. Both of them were old now, veterans of the transformation. Were they? Maria asked. They said humans were dangerous. They were right about that, but they missed the important part. Dangerous to who? You are dangerous to evil, dangerous to oppression, dangerous to anyone who preys on the weak. The galaxy needed that danger. We just didn't know it. Maria smiled. We tried to tell you. That transmission we sent the predecessors about not wanting to be enemies, we meant it. We still mean it. But we've learned something too. Sometimes being kind means being dangerous to those who aren't. They stood together in silence, looking at the beacon. Around them, the galaxy continued its work. Human ships patrolled the space lanes. Alien species learned from human determination. Together, they built something neither could have built alone. The warnings had spoken of humans. History would speak of what happened when the galaxy finally listened, not to the fear but to the possibility. The age of running from humans was over. The age of running with them had begun, and the galaxy, for the first time in millennia, felt hope for the future. The massive ships appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's skies were clear. The next, 7 enormous black vessels hung above major cities. Their hulls absorbed light rather than reflected it, making them look like holes cut into the blue sky. In Washington, D.C., military leaders gathered in an underground bunker. Admiral John Carter sat at the head of the table, his weathered face grim as he studied the satellite images. What do we know? He asked. General Susan Wright shook her head. Nothing yet. They're not responding to any communication attempts. No hostile action so far, but they've positioned themselves over New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo, New Delhi, and here. The room fell silent as a young aide rushed in. Sir, they're broadcasting something. Worldwide. On every screen, radio and connected device across the planet, the same message played. A tall being with obsidian skin and 4 arms appeared. Its face had no nose, just slits and 6 yellow eyes arranged in a pattern. When it spoke, its voice was deep and seemed to vibrate through people's bones. People of Earth. I am Lord Commander, Zyrex of the Valkyrian Empire. Your world now falls under our protection and authority. Your leaders will present themselves to us for instruction. Resistance is unnecessary and unwise. You have 6 hours to comply. The message ended. Panic spread across the globe. In the bunker, Admiral Carter stood up. I'll go. John, it's suicide, Susan said. Maybe. But someone has to meet them face to face, find out what they really want. 4 hours later, John Carter stood on the white house lawn with representatives from 30 nations behind him. A beam of purple light shot down from the ship above and a platform descended. Lord Commander Zyrex stood upon it with 4 guards, each holding weapons that hummed with energy. I represent Earth, John said, stepping forward. We wish to establish peaceful relations and understand your intentions. Cyrex's upper arms remained folded while his lower ones gestured dismissively. Your understanding is not required. The Valkyrian Empire extends across 3,000 worlds. Earth will provide resources and soldiers. In return, you receive our protection. And if we refuse? Asked John. Zyrex tilted his head. Refusal is not an option, but I will demonstrate why compliance is wise. He spoke into a device on his wrist. Moments later, the smallest of their ships moved. It positioned itself over the empty waters of the Atlantic Ocean, then fired a beam of intense white light. Steam erupted as the ocean boiled. When the beam shut off, a perfectly circular hole 2 miles wide and of unknown depth remained where ocean had been. That was our smallest weapon, fired at minimal power, Zyrex said. You have 24 hours to prepare your submission documents. As the aliens returned to their ship, John turned to the ashen-faced world leaders. We need options. But Earth had no options. Military satellites were destroyed before they could be used. The few missiles launched were intercepted with ease. After a brief and overwhelmingly one-sided battle that left Rio de Janeiro, Cairo, and Sydney in ruins, humanity's leaders reluctantly signed the Treaty of Submission. The terms were harsh. Earth would provide resources and conscripted soldiers. All technology development would be strictly controlled. Compliance officers were stationed in every major city. In a remote laboratory nestled in the Colorado mountains, Lisa Martinez watched the signing ceremony on a small screen. As the head of quantum physics research for what had been a government facility, she knew her work would soon be confiscated or destroyed. Ryan, help me download everything, she told her assistant. And then destroy the originals. They'll kill us if they find out, Ryan said, but he was already typing commands. They'll use our research to better control us if they get it, Lisa replied. We were close to something revolutionary. I'm not letting them have it. They worked through the night, hiding data in seemingly harmless files and destroying their most important progress. When the Valkyrian officers arrived the next day, they found only basic research and equipment. The aliens assigned the lab to develop improved mining equipment for their new resource extraction operations. Lisa pretended to comply while secretly continuing her work on a revolutionary propulsion system. Meanwhile, in the occupied ruins of Seattle, former Marine Frank Daniels watched Valkyrian soldiers patrol the streets. His apartment overlooked what had been the downtown area before the example strike that had leveled 8 blocks as punishment for an early protest. Frank wasn't a scientist or politician, but he had served 4 combat tours and knew how to fight against superior forces. More importantly, he knew how to teach others. They're creatures of habit, he told the small group gathered in his basement. Same patrol routes, same times. They think we're beaten. Among the group were former police officers, a doctor, 2 college students, and several people who had lost family in the strikes. All had fire in their eyes. We start small, Frank said. Information gathering, equipment, collection. No direct confrontation yet. When do we actually fight back? Asked a young woman named Olivia, whose parents had died in the initial attack. When we can hurt them without getting caught, Frank answered. This isn't about revenge. It's about survival and eventually freedom, but first we need to be smart. Their first move was simple but effective. A Valkyrian supply depot used robotic loaders to move containers. Frank's team reprogrammed one to malfunction, creating a chain reaction that destroyed supplies meant for a new mining operation. It looked like an accident. 3 months into the occupation, Earth had changed. Massive mining operations scarred landscapes. Compliance officers monitored all communications. Humans who resisted disappeared. In Times Square, now dominated by a Valkyrian command tower, a group of protesters gathered despite the risks. They carried no weapons, only signs demanding basic rights. Valkyrian soldiers surrounded them quickly. The local commander, a Valkyrian named Drez, stepped forward. Disperse immediately. When the protesters held their ground, Drez gave a simple order. His soldiers opened fire, killing everyone. The entire incident was broadcast worldwide as a warning. Lisa Martinez watched the broadcast from her hidden computer. That night she made contact with Frank's growing resistance network through an encrypted channel her team had developed. This is Starlight, she typed, using her codename. I have something that might help us fight back. This is Wolfpack, came the reply. Prove it's worth the risk. How about a way to disable their shields? Lisa wrote. There was a long pause before the answer came. We're listening. 3 years passed under Valkyrian rule. Earth had become almost unrecognizable. Forests were cleared for mining operations. The skies over industrial zones stayed dark with smoke. Massive ships carried Earth's resources to distant stars. Humans worked long hours under the watchful eyes of compliance officers. Frank Daniels stared at a map spread across a table in the Resistance's newest hideout, an abandoned subway station beneath Detroit. Red marks showed Valkyrian strongholds. Blue marks showed resistance cells. There were more blue marks now than 3 months ago. "We hit their fuel depot in Chicago last week," said Diane Powell, pointing to a location on the map. Before the invasion, she had been an intelligence analyst. Now she was Frank's most trusted lieutenant. Made it look like an equipment failure. Frank nodded. "Any losses?" "None. We were in and out before they knew what happened." This was how the Resistance operated. Careful, patient, and smart. No direct confrontations, no martyrs. Just constant small victories that looked like accidents or system failures. "What about our friend in the mountains?" Frank asked. Diane handed him a small data chip. "Lisa sent this. She says it's important." In the Appalachian Mountains, Lisa Martinez worked in an abandoned military bunker that the Valkyrians never discovered. With her was a team of 12 scientists and engineers who had escaped the alien work programs. Lisa hadn't seen daylight in months. She didn't mind. Her work was too important. On a large table sat her prototype, a device that looked like a small satellite dish attached to a series of rings and a power source. "Run the test again," she told Ryan, who had stayed with her since Colorado. Ryan typed commands into a computer. The device hummed to life, projecting an invisible field. On another table, a small piece of Valkyrian technology they had stolen sat inside a protective shield, similar to what the aliens used on their ships and buildings. The shield flickered, then failed completely. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. "It works." "But only at this range," Ryan pointed out, "and we need to get close to actually use it." "One problem at a time," Lisa said. "First we prove it works consistently, then we figure out how to use it." In Seattle, now rebuilt as a major Valkyrian Administrative Center, Kevin Reyes cleaned the floors of the main command building. At 25, he had been studying computer science when the invasion happened. Now he wore the gray uniform of human service workers. The Valkyrians barely noticed him as he moved through their halls. That was their mistake. Kevin had an exceptional memory and understood technology better than most. As he cleaned, he observed, remembered, and later recorded everything he saw. "The security protocols change every 6 hours," Kevin told his resistance contact during a brief meeting in the market. "But there's a pattern. I've almost figured it out." 2 weeks later, Kevin took the biggest risk of his life. During his shift, he attached a small device Lisa had created to a Valkyrian computer terminal. The device copied data without triggering alarms. When his shift ended, Kevin removed the device and walked out, his heart pounding. That night, Resistance members gathered around a screen as Kevin plugged in the device. Information flowed across the screen: Valkyrian ship movements, communication codes, and most importantly, details about their occupation force. "This can't be right," Diane said, reading the translated data. "According to this, there are only about 10,000 Valkyrian soldiers on Earth." "That's not enough to control the whole planet," Frank agreed. "They don't need more," Kevin explained. "Their technology gives each soldier the power of hundreds, and they've convinced us they have millions stationed here. But the most valuable information came near the end. High Commander Vrex, Lord Commander Zyrex's superior, would be visiting Earth in 2 months to evaluate the planet's integration into the Empire. "This is the opportunity we've been waiting for," Frank said. "Lisa's device, Vrex's visit. We can show the Empire we're not beaten." The plan took shape over the next several weeks. Using the secure communication network Diane had developed, resistance cells across the globe coordinated. Lisa's team worked day and night to improve their device and build more copies. The plan was simple, but dangerous. When Vrex's shuttle landed, for the ceremony in New York, A small team would use Lisa's device to disable its shields. Another team would create a distraction. In the confusion, they would capture Vrex, or kill him if necessary. 1 week before the operation, Frank traveled to Lisa's bunker. He needed to see the device for himself and help transport it to New York. Lisa looked thinner than he remembered from their video calls. Dark circles marked her eyes, but there was fire in them too. "Will it work?" Frank asked, looking at the device now packed in a special case. "It will disable their shields within a 50-meter radius," Lisa said. "But it needs to be that close, and we only have power for one shot." "One shot is all we need," Frank assured her. They left the next morning, traveling in a stolen Valkyrian transport authorized for human workers. The device was hidden under food supplies. They passed through 3 checkpoints without problems. They were 20 miles from New York when everything went wrong. At a final checkpoint, a Valkyrian officer ordered an additional scan. Something had triggered their suspicions. Frank watched as the officer's 6 eyes narrowed at the scanner readings. "Open all containers," the Valkyrian ordered. Frank knew they were caught. He looked at Lisa, then at the other resistance members, disguised as workers. With a subtle nod, he gave the signal. What happened next was chaos. Frank attacked the officer while others targeted the guards. Lisa grabbed the device and ran for the nearby woods. More Valkyrians arrived. Energy weapons fired. "Go!" Frank yelled at the others as he provided covering fire. "Get her and that device to safety." Frank kept fighting even as the others escaped. He managed to kill 3 more Valkyrians before something hit him from behind. Everything went dark. When Frank woke, he was in a Valkyrian detention cell. His body ached in ways he didn't know were possible. Standing over him was a Valkyrian intelligence officer named Krell. "You led this group," Krell said. It wasn't a question. Frank said nothing. "You humans are interesting," Krell continued. 3,000 worlds in our empire, and very few resist after the first year. Yet here you are, still fighting after 3. Krell moved closer. "Where are the others? Where is the device you were transporting?" Frank remained silent. He knew what was coming. Torture was a universal language. "You will tell me everything," Krell promised. "Everyone does eventually." Miles away, Lisa and the surviving team members reached a resistance safe house in the ruins of New Jersey. The device was damaged but not destroyed. "We need to fix it," Lisa said urgently. "And we need a new plan." "What about Frank?" someone asked. Diane, who had been waiting at the safe house, took charge. "Frank knew the risks. He bought us time. Now we use it." They monitored Valkyrian broadcasts. The next day they saw Frank on all channels. He was in Times Square, bloodied but standing. Krell announced to the world that this man was a terrorist and would be publicly executed after interrogation. The message was clear. Resistance was futile. But as Lisa worked to repair the device, and Diane reorganized their scattered forces, they knew the opposite was true. Frank's capture hadn't ended the resistance, it had just made it more determined. Frank Daniels had lost track of time in the Valkyrian detention center in what was once Chicago. Days blurred together in a haze of pain. The interrogation methods used by Krell went beyond physical torture. Valkyrian technology could stimulate pain receptors directly, making Frank feel like he was burning alive while leaving no marks. Still, Frank revealed nothing. He knew each day he stayed silent was another day for Lisa to fix the device and for Diane to rebuild the plan. "You are unusually strong-willed," Krell said during one session. "Most species break by now." Frank managed a bloody smile. "Maybe you're just not very good at your job." The comment earned him another round of pain, but Frank saw the flash of anger in Krell's 6 eyes. Good. Angry enemies made mistakes. In a different part of the facility, Patricia Howard treated injured prisoners. Once a surgeon at a major hospital, she now worked under Valkyrian supervision. The aliens tolerated her because their own medical knowledge of human physiology was limited. Patricia had been passing information to the resistance for months. Small things, guard rotations, facility layouts, overheard conversations. Nothing that would raise suspicion. But when she heard Frank Daniels had been captured, She knew she had to do more. She requested permission to examine the high-value prisoner. "He will die if his wounds are not treated," she told the guard. "Your commander wants information he cannot give if he's dead." They allowed it, watching her closely as she cleaned Frank's wounds. "Don't give up," she whispered while applying bandages. "I'm going to help you escape." Frank showed no reaction, but he heard her. Over the next week, Patricia prepared carefully. She stole a key card from a distracted guard. She memorized the camera patterns. She created a medical emergency with another prisoner to test response times. When she felt ready, she requested another session with Frank, claiming his wounds were infected. Once inside his cell, she moved quickly, injecting the guard with a sedative before he could react. "Can you walk?" she asked Frank, helping him up. "Not well, but I'll manage," he replied, his voice hoarse. Patricia explained the plan as they moved through back corridors. "There's a medical transport leaving in 10 minutes. I've created false documents transferring you to another facility." They almost made it. They were crossing the loading dock when an alarm sounded. Valkyrian guards appeared at both exits. Patricia made a split-second decision. She pressed a small data chip into Frank's hand. "This has everything I've learned about their physiology, their weaknesses. Get it to the resistance." Before Frank could stop her, Patricia ran toward the guards, screaming and drawing their attention. In the confusion, Frank slipped onto the transport vehicle and hid under a tarp covering medical supplies. He heard energy weapons fire. He heard Patricia's scream cut short. Then silence. The transport left the facility. Frank remained hidden for hours, fighting pain and grief. When the vehicle stopped for a checkpoint, he slipped out into a wooded area. He was free, but injured, and alone in Valkyrian-controlled territory. Back at the safe house in New Jersey, Lisa worked tirelessly on the damaged device. Parts of it had been crushed during their escape. Other components had overloaded. "It's not just about fixing it anymore," she explained to Diane and the others. "I think I can improve it, make it more powerful." "How much longer?" Diane asked. Time was running out. Vrex's visit was just 1 week away, and they had lost contact with several resistance cells. 3 days, maybe 4, Lisa replied. On the 3rd day, as Lisa made final adjustments, a lookout rushed in. "Someone's coming through the perimeter." Weapons were drawn immediately. Diane moved to the window and looked through binoculars. "Hold your fire," she ordered. "It's Frank." Frank Daniels looked nothing like the strong leader they remembered. He was gaunt, limping, his face marked with half-healed wounds. But his eyes still burned with determination. After a quick medical check and some food, Frank shared everything he had learned. He carefully handed over Patricia's data chip. "She gave her life for this," he said quietly. "It better be worth something." Lisa examined the data with growing excitement. "This is incredible. Their biology, they're uniquely sensitive to a specific frequency. That's why their technology operates on such precise energy parameters." She turned to her device, making rapid adjustments. "I can tune this to target that frequency. It won't just disable their shields, it could disrupt their entire power grid." "Can you test it?" Frank asked. Lisa shook her head. "Not without Valkyrian technology nearby. The test would alert them to our location." "So we'll be going in blind," Diane said. "Not completely," Lisa replied. "The theory is sound, and we won't get another chance like Vrex's visit." They spent the next 2 days planning. Vrex would arrive in a shuttle, land at the main Valkyrian base in New York, and tour several facilities before departing. The ceremony would include the execution of several resistance fighters, including Frank, who was now listed as escaped. "They'll be looking for me," Frank said. "We can use that." Their new plan was bold but simple. While Valkyrian forces were distracted looking for Frank, a small team would infiltrate the landing zone maintenance area. Lisa's device would be hidden there, timed to activate when Vrex's shuttle landed. "If it works, their shields will fail and their systems will overload," Lisa explained. "It should create enough chaos for us to get inside and capture Vrex, or at least access their database." The day before Vrex's arrival, They moved to an abandoned warehouse closer to the landing zone. From there, they could see the massive Valkyrian base that had once been Central Park. That night, as the others made final preparations, Frank found Lisa alone, making adjustments to the device. "You know this is a one-way mission for whoever plants this," he said. Lisa didn't look up from her work. "I know, that's why I'm going." "No," Frank said firmly. "You're too valuable. Your knowledge is useless if we don't succeed tomorrow." Lisa interrupted. "I know exactly how to position this for maximum effect. No one else does." Frank wanted to argue but knew she was right. "Then I'm coming with you." Early the next morning, disguised as maintenance workers, Lisa and Frank approached the landing zone. The device was hidden in a cleaning cart. Diane and her team waited nearby, ready to move in after the device activated. Security was heavy but focused outward, looking for an attack rather than infiltrators already inside. Frank's forged credentials got them through 2 checkpoints. They reached the maintenance tunnel running beneath the landing pad. Lisa began setting up the device while Frank stood guard. "How long?" he whispered. 5 minutes to calibrate. Then we need to get clear before it activates," she replied. Frank heard footsteps approaching. "We have company." 2 Valkyrian guards turned the corner, spotted them, and raised their weapons. Frank reacted instantly, throwing his knife at one while tackling the other. In the confined space, the alien's superior strength was less effective. Frank subdued both guards, but not before one sent a partial alert. Warning lights began flashing. "We're out of time," Frank said. "Is it ready?" Lisa nodded, hands still working frantically on the device. "Almost, but someone needs to stay to activate it manually now." Their eyes met. Both knew what that meant. "Go," Frank said. "Get to Diane, I'll finish this." Lisa hesitated, then handed him the activation key. 30 seconds after you insert this. No more." Before leaving, she did something unexpected. She kissed Frank's cheek. "Humanity will remember you." Frank watched her disappear down the tunnel. Then he turned to the device, key in hand, as the sound of running footsteps grew closer. Above, Brex's shuttle was beginning its landing approach. Frank took a deep breath and inserted the key. 30 seconds, he whispered to himself. "Here's for Earth." The seconds counted down as Frank crouched beside the device. Valkyrian soldiers were getting closer. He could hear their heavy footsteps and sharp commands. Above, Brex's shuttle was settling onto the landing pad. 20 seconds left. Frank drew his stolen Valkyrian energy pistol. He wasn't planning to survive, but he would make sure the device did. 10 seconds. The first Valkyrian soldier appeared at the tunnel entrance. Frank fired, catching the alien in the chest. It fell back with a shriek. 5 seconds. More soldiers appeared. Energy blasts hit the wall near Frank's head. 0. The device activated, with a high-pitched whine that quickly rose beyond human hearing. For a moment nothing seemed to happen. Then everything changed. The Valkyrian soldiers dropped their weapons and clutched their heads in pain. The lights flickered and died. From above came the sound of tearing metal and crashes as Rex's shuttle, suddenly without power or shields, fell the last few feet to the landing pad. Frank felt a surge of hope. It worked. He ran past the suffering Valkyrians toward the exit. He had to find Lisa and Diane. They needed to move quickly while the aliens were vulnerable. Outside was chaos. Valkyrian technology everywhere was failing. Their vehicles stopped. In the streets, their communication devices sparked and smoked. Most importantly, the Valkyrians themselves seemed disoriented and in pain, the frequency affecting their sensitive hearing. Frank spotted Lisa and Diane leading a small team toward the shuttle. He ran to join them. "You're alive." Lisa's face showed shock and joy. "Not dead yet," Frank replied with a grim smile. "The device? Working better than we hoped," Lisa said. "Their entire power grid is crashing. The effect is spreading beyond what I calculated." They reached the damaged shuttle. The door had been thrown open by the impact. Inside, Valkyrian crew members were struggling to stand. In the center, surrounded by guards was a larger, more imposing Valkyrian wearing ornate armor. High Commander Vrex. Secure him, Frank ordered. 2 resistance fighters moved in, restraining Vrex with special bindings Lisa had designed to hold Valkyrian strength. You dare? Vrex began, but Diane struck him, cutting off his words. For Earth, she said coldly. They quickly searched the shuttle, finding something unexpected. A data core containing the ship's navigation system and communication protocols. Lisa examined it with excitement. This has the locations of every Valkyrian-controlled world, she said. And their secure communication channels. We can contact other resistance movements, if there are any, Frank said. There must be. We can't be the only ones fighting back. Alarms were sounding across the base. Despite their technological failure, the Valkyrians were regrouping. Human collaborators were helping them restore some systems. We need to move, Frank said. Bring Vrex and the data core. Outside they met Kevin Reyes with more resistance members. They had commandeered a large transport vehicle. The effect is spreading across the city, Kevin reported. All Valkyrian tech is down or malfunctioning. They piled into the transport, Vrex secured in the center. As they drove away from the base, Valkyrian aircraft appeared in the distance. Ships from outside the affected zone coming to investigate. We won't outrun those, Diane said, pointing. Head for the old subway tunnels, Frank ordered the driver. We can hide underground until we figure out our next move. In the tunnels beneath Manhattan, they established a temporary base. Lisa worked on the data core while others guarded Vrex and monitored Valkyrian communications using stolen equipment. 8 hours after the attack, Lisa called everyone together. Her face was glowing with excitement. I've been studying both the data core and the Valkyrian technology we captured, she explained. And I have 2 important discoveries. She activated a holographic display showing a star map. First, Earth is just one of hundreds of subjugated worlds. Many have been under Valkyrian control for centuries. The map expanded, showing the vast reach of the Empire across multiple star systems. Second, Lisa continued, I've confirmed that all their technology operates on the same principle, the same frequency constraints I targeted with my device. And I think we can build a larger version. Larger how? Frank asked. Ship-sized, Lisa said. With enough power we could disable entire Valkyrian fleets, maybe even their homeworld's defenses. The tunnel fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. It was Diane who spoke first. Are you suggesting we take the fight to them? To space? Lisa nodded. The data core has complete schematics for their ships. With what we've learned about their technology, we could capture one, maybe more. All eyes turned to Vrex, who had been listening silently. The High Commander's 6 eyes narrowed. You would be destroyed before reaching the nearest Imperial outpost, he said. What happened here was a momentary setback. The Empire spans 3,000 worlds. Your resistance is meaningless. Frank stepped closer to Vrex. If that's true, why are your soldiers still scrambling to restore power 12 hours after our momentary setback? He turned to the others. Lisa's right. We can't just keep fighting them here on Earth. We need to take this opportunity. Plans formed quickly. While Valkyrian forces were weakened, resistance cells across the planet would strike key targets. Meanwhile, Frank and Lisa would lead a team to capture a Valkyrian ship in orbit. The biggest challenge was getting to orbit. Most Valkyrian shuttles on Earth were damaged by Lisa's device. They needed one from outside the affected area. There's a secondary landing facility near Boston, Kevin said, studying captured data. Smaller ships, less security. And Valkyrian forces there will be responding to New York, Diane added. It might be minimally defended now. 3 days later, under cover of darkness, Frank led a small team into the Boston facility. As expected, most forces had been deployed to New York. The few remaining guards were easily overwhelmed. They found what they needed, a functioning shuttle large enough for 20 people. Lisa inspected it carefully. Their technology is returning to normal outside the blast radius, she warned, but I can modify the engines to resist any remote shutdown commands. It took another day to prepare. Lisa installed a larger version of her device on the shuttle, Frank selected the team, the best fighters and technicians from the Resistance. Diane would remain on Earth to coordinate the ground campaign. The night before their mission, Frank found Lisa working on the shuttle engines. She hadn't slept in days. "You should rest," he said. Lisa shook her head. "Too much to do." "This has to work, Frank. It's our only chance." Frank placed a hand on her shoulder. "It will work. You've never failed us before." She looked up at him, her tired eyes meeting his. "And if we succeed? If we actually reach space? Then we find out if other worlds are fighting back," Frank said, "and we bring them what they need to win." The next morning, their stolen shuttle lifted off from Earth. 20 humans on a desperate mission against an empire of 3,000 worlds. As they broke through the clouds, Frank looked back at the blue planet growing smaller beneath them. "For Earth," he whispered. Ahead, a Valkyrian cruiser hung in orbit, its weapons still powered down from the disruption below. Their first target, Lisa, activated her device. "Ready when you are," Frank nodded to the pilot. "Take us in, fast and quiet." The shuttle accelerated toward the much larger ship. The first battle of humanity's counteroffensive was about to begin. The stolen shuttle approached the Valkyrian cruiser silently. The massive ship hung in Earth's orbit, its sleek black hull absorbing the sunlight. It was at least 20 times larger than their shuttle, and armed with weapons that could vaporize them in seconds. "Activating the device now," Lisa said. She pressed a series of controls on her modified version of the frequency disruptor. The device hummed to life. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the lights on the cruiser began to flicker. "It's working," Kevin whispered from his position at the scanner. "Their power levels are dropping, shields are down." Frank turned to the team. "Remember the plan. We dock, secure the bridge and engineering section, then use their own weapons to defend the ship until Lisa can get its systems fully under our control." The shuttle docked with the cruiser without resistance. When the airlock opened, they found 2 Valkyrian crew members writhing on the floor, the frequency causing them intense pain. Frank's team moved past them quickly. The corridors of the ship were dimly lit by emergency lighting. Most systems were offline. They encountered little resistance as they moved toward the bridge. The few Valkyrians they found were quickly subdued. "This is too easy," Frank said to Lisa as they approached the bridge. "Something's wrong." As if in answer to his concern, a group of Valkyrians wearing modified helmets appeared ahead of them. The helmets must have been shielding them from the frequency. "Adaptable," Lisa muttered. "I should have expected that." The fight was brief, but violent. Energy weapons fired in the confined space. 2 resistance fighters fell. But Frank's team had surprise and desperation on their side. Within minutes, the Valkyrians were defeated. When they reached the bridge, they found more helmet-wearing Valkyrians ready for them. The ship's captain, a tall, scarred warrior, stood at the center. "Humans," he snarled. "You think capturing one ship means anything? Our fleet will be here within days." "Then we better work fast," Frank replied, before signaling his team to attack. The battle for the bridge was harder than the corridors. These Valkyrians were elite soldiers, but in the end, the humans prevailed. Frank watched the captain fall, a look of disbelief in his 6 eyes. Lisa immediately began working on the ship's systems. "I need to understand how to operate this vessel before their reinforcements arrive," she explained. Frank left her with Kevin and a security team, then led another group to secure the engineering section. There they found the true power of the ship, a reactor core that glowed with strange blue energy. "Can we use this?" Frank asked when Lisa joined them later. She studied the controls, her face lit by the blue glow. "Yes. This technology is advanced, but it follows the same principles. I've been studying. With enough time, I can adapt our device to work with their power source." Over the next 2 days, they learned to control the ship. Lisa worked tirelessly to integrate her frequency device with the cruiser's systems. Others studied the weapons, navigation, and life support systems. Using the captured data core and the ship's communication array, They sent encrypted messages to resistance groups on other worlds. To their surprise and joy, they received responses almost immediately. "There are others fighting back," Lisa told Frank as they reviewed the messages. "Dozens of species on hundreds of worlds. Some have been resisting for generations." Frank studied the star map, where Lisa had marked all the resistance contacts. "They've been kept isolated just like us, made to think they were alone." "Not anymore," Lisa said. "We're sharing the frequency technology with all of them. The Empire won't be able to adapt fast enough if we strike simultaneously." On the third day in orbit, their sensors detected multiple ships entering the system. Valkyrian reinforcements had arrived. 3 cruisers and a command ship, Kevin reported from his newly learned position at the sensor station. Frank looked to Lisa. "Is the integrated system ready?" She nodded. "Untested at this range, but ready." "Then let's test it," Frank said grimly. Lisa activated the device, now powered by the cruiser's reactor. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The approaching Valkyrian ships suddenly slowed, their engines flickering. Their weapons powered down. Communications went silent. "It's working," Lisa exclaimed. "All 4 ships are affected." Frank didn't waste the opportunity. "Bring us alongside the command ship. Prepare boarding teams." What followed was a day of intense fighting as Frank's forces, now confident in their advantage, captured all 4 Valkyrian vessels. With each ship taken, more humans were freed from transport holds and prison sections. Many joined their cause immediately. 2 weeks later, a small fleet of 5 Valkyrian ships, now controlled by humans, left Earth's orbit. Their destination, the nearest subjugated world where resistance forces had made contact. Frank stood on the bridge of the lead ship, now named Defiance, watching Earth grow smaller on the view screen. "Will they be all right?" he asked Diane, who had joined their Space Force as a tactical officer. "The ground forces have captured most Valkyrian bases," she replied. "Lisa's technology has spread worldwide. Earth is fighting back everywhere. They'll be fine." Their first stop was a planet called Terrax, home to a reptilian species that had been under Valkyrian rule for over a century. When the human fleet arrived and disabled the orbital defenses, the resistance there rose up and overwhelmed their oppressors within days. From Terrax, they moved to other worlds following the same pattern. Disable Valkyrian technology, arm the local resistance, free the planet, then move on. At each world, some stayed behind to help, while others from that world joined the fleet. 2 years passed. What had begun as 5 ships with human crews grew into a massive liberation fleet of over 100 vessels crewed by dozens of species. Frank commanded the military operations, while Lisa continued to improve the technology that gave them their edge. Word of their successes spread faster than they could travel. Worlds began rising up before they even arrived. The Valkyrian Empire, for the first time in its 1,000-year history, was losing ground. "The time has come," Frank told the assembled commanders of the Liberation Fleet. Representatives from 37 species listened as he outlined their boldest plan yet. "We've freed nearly 200 worlds," he said, "but thousands remain under Imperial control. To end this, we must strike at the heart, the Valkyrian home world." Their intelligence, gathered from captured officers and ships, revealed that the Imperial Palace on the Valkyrian homeworld housed the central command node for their entire empire. It was their greatest strength and greatest weakness. Lisa had been working on a special project for months, a modified version of her device that could trigger a star to emit a precisely tuned solar flare. "It won't harm the star," she explained to the commanders, "but it will create an electromagnetic pulse that will render all Valkyrian technology in the system useless for hours." The attack on the Valkyrian home system began with this solar flare. As predicted, it disabled everything in the system. The Liberation Fleet, modified to withstand the pulse, moved in unopposed. Frank led the ground assault on the Imperial Palace. After the battles of the past 2 years, this one seemed almost easy. The Palace Guard, without their technological advantages, fell quickly. In the throne room, they found the Emperor himself, older and smaller than Frank had imagined, surrounded by cowering advisors. "You've lost," Frank told him simply. 3 months later, representatives from over 500 worlds gathered in the former Imperial Palace, now converted into the headquarters of the new Galactic Confederation. Each world would have an equal voice. No species would rule over another again. On the observation deck overlooking the gathering, Frank stood with Lisa, watching the historic moment. Did you ever think, when those ships first appeared over Earth, that it would end like this? Lisa asked. Frank shook his head. Never. I just wanted to survive, to help others survive. And instead you freed the galaxy, Lisa said with a smile. Frank looked out at the stars, the same stars that once belonged to the Empire, now shining on free worlds. Not me, he said quietly. All of us. Every person who refused to kneel. Below,